Welcome back. You are listening to the International Service of Radio Tunis and our guest today, Ms. JAHANA HAYES, 2016 Teacher of the Year. And I will ask SAIDA SAIDA JEDIDI SFAXI, who is the English Language Teaching Coordinator at the American Embassy, maybe to introduce JAHANA a little bit more to us. Hi, SAIDA.
Hi.
Welcome.
And, good afternoon, Paul. Today I'm so honored to have Ms. JAHANA Hayes here in Tunisia. Ms. JAHANA is a history teacher at John F. Kennedy High School in Waterbury, Connecticut. She's been teaching for more than 13 years. Ms. JAHANA Hayes Ms. JAHANA Hayes has been teaching for more than 13 years in Waterbury, Connecticut school. She's not only a teacher, but also an advisor, a counselor, a confidant and protector for her students. She's been selected as the U.S. 2016 National Teacher of the Year, and she's also the spokesperson for the teaching profession. She's here in Tunisia under the International Information Program. It's a program sponsored by the Department of State, and she's the embassy guest U.S. speaker, and she's been a note speaker for several events here in Tunisia, and we are so happy to have her with us.
Okay, we are happy to have her with us as well. So welcome, JAHANA. First of all, I would like to ask you, when did you decide to become a teacher, and why did you choose history as a subject?
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
It's so nice to be here in Tunisia. It's been wonderful since I arrived. And to answer your question, when did I decide or choose to be a teacher? There really is no answer for that, because I think teaching chose me. You know, I've always wanted to do this. I remember from a very young girl playing school with dolls, and I was the teacher, and just always having a passion for this profession. And so I've always wanted to be a teacher. I can't remember any one moment where I decided. I just have always known. And I think history, I was led to history because I am fascinated by people's stories, by people's culture, and many of my students have an adverse feeling towards history. They think it's about names and dates and places and memorizing battles. And I want them to experience it in a very different way and understand that history is about understanding people and how changes impact people and how we have an opportunity to create change and weave our own stories. And that's just a beautiful thing to be a part of. So history was just natural for me. I am a storyteller. I am a talker. It was something that was very comfortable for me, and I was fascinated by other cultures. So I think it's appropriate that I am a history teacher.
Wonderful. You started talking a little bit about teaching history maybe from a different perspective. Is it a kind of humanizing history for your students?
Oh,
because
absolutely.
You talked about this human side and the openness onto other cultures as well, and this is very enriching.
Absolutely. That is so critically important to me, that my students understand that people are different, people are very diverse, but everyone has something very unique to contribute to the story. So I am very intentional in the way I teach. I want my students to gain an empathy and an understanding and a respect for others through our stories. So I try to be as creative as I can in my approach and just really show them a much broader picture of the world that we live in.
Right. So maybe this would touch a little bit on your philosophy in education.
Oh, it's very easy. You know, I've been asked that question many times through this journey. You know, as part of the selection process, people are always interested to know, what do you think about education? And my philosophy is very simple. First of all, I believe wholeheartedly that all students can learn, no matter where they come from, no matter what challenges they have, no matter what they present. They have the capacity to learn, and as teachers, we have to figure out how to make that happen. And secondly, we have to teach students knowledge and character. Our role as teachers is not just to impart skills and knowledge and academic capacity, but to teach them to be good citizens, not just good students. So I think those two things propel me in the classroom, just believing that my students can learn and then understanding what I think I need to teach them helps me to develop my philosophy, to live my philosophy, to teach by my philosophy, and that's what I've always done since I started this career.
And because teachers, you were talking about the role of a teacher, and here the role of a teacher as an educator as well, not only a simple teacher teaching content in classroom.
Yes, I learned very quickly that my role did not end when the school bell rang. You know, my relationships in the community, my presence in, my school, outside of my school, the engagement with parents and communities really helped me to become a better teacher. And I understand that it's not just about the teacher and the student, but it's about everyone working together to improve outcomes for kids. And that really involves relationships on many different levels, and sometimes we go in thinking as teachers, we just have to master the content and go in and teach a lesson. But sometimes other things need to take place before you can even begin to teach a lesson. You have to connect with students. Sometimes you have to build relationships with parents. And you have to be willing and open to do those things if you truly are committed and dedicated to this profession.
Right. So what do you think are the qualities for a good teacher or for an excellent teacher? Since you were selected Teacher of the Year, National Teacher of the Year for 2016, could you maybe share with us some of the qualities maybe that made you an outstanding teacher?
Well, there's so many different things. I think first and foremost, you have to be academically sound. You have to know your content area. You have to continue to develop yourself professionally. You have to be a continual learner. But then you have to make connections with students so that you can transmit that learning. It is of no value if I have all this information, but I can't share it with students.
That's right.
So I guess developing relationships, making students feel valued and respected and appreciated in your classrooms so that you create a space for trust to exist and students are open to learning new things, to taking risks. I think for any new teacher or any emerging teacher, I think learning early on to accept failure and be reflective and just know that there will be challenges. There will be days when you think, I have not been effective. But a good teacher doesn't walk away on those days. A good teacher, reflects on what they did and figures out how they can do it differently and tries new strategies, because education looks so very different today than it did 5 years ago or even 10 years ago.
That's right.
So you have to be flexible and open to change and just creative and innovative. All of the things that we tell our students to do, I think they apply to us equally.
Right. So what do you think is most important for you, teaching or learning?
Learning, 100% learning. I think that many educators look at this very traditional structure where the teacher is this autonomous being and the students are below the teacher. But I have learned that, students and teachers both learn from each other, and if we are accepting of what students bring and encouraging of them to share their ideas and their feelings and their dreams and incorporate them into our lesson, then we create this constant cycle of learning. I think one of the most dangerous things for a teacher is to become stagnant.
That's right.
To say, my education is done and now I begin to teach. And that's a very unrealistic perspective because the world is always changing. We are always changing. And if you don't continue to learn and to grow and to develop, then you really can't truly help students to learn and grow and develop. So I would say learning is so much more important than teaching.
Right.
Teaching is learning.
That's true. You learn
Yes.
by doing.
Yes.
That's it. Well, we'll have another short break with music, and then we will come back and continue to talk a little bit about this wonderful profession, which is teaching. Stay with us. We'll be back.
I had a dream.
Welcome back. This is the International Service of Radio Tunis, and our guest today, Ms. JAHANA Hayes, 2016 Teacher of the Year, National Teacher of the Year in the U.S., and she is with us today to share with us her experience. And we were talking about the importance of teaching and learning, and JAHANA said learning is certainly more important than teaching, because learning is really rich, and we continue this process during all our lives, and this is very important. So, JAHANA, what is maybe one of the greatest, or what do you consider is the greatest success that you have had in your teaching career?
I think I've seen many things over my career, and obviously this year, being named by President Obama as the Teacher of the Year was tremendous and rewarding as a teacher. But I think the greatest thing that I've seen is that the students that I have taught have really become invested in their communities. So much of what I do in my classroom is service work in our communities. My students volunteer, we tutor younger students, and I see them many years later. They've gone off to university and come back, and that has stayed with them. Many of them on their own have continued to help out in their communities, to work in local soup kitchens, to volunteer on a regular basis. And I'm very proud that they understand how important that is. It wasn't just that they did it for me, it became a part of who they are. And I see that over and over again. You know, many times I will go out to, register for a community event, and I'll see former students who are adults now, and they are every year, year after year, helping out. So I think that's what I want my students to remember about me as a teacher, the one who made them understand that they can make their world a better place. Everyone can play a small part in that they can help to improve the human condition. And that, I think, is more important than any award or any recognition that I've received. This process has really illuminated the work that I've done with my students and reminded me of what I've done. But, as wonderful as it has been to travel to meet dignitaries and amazing people all over the world, I think the fact that my students understand the importance of being good people is so much more important to me.
Well, this is very important, but do you think that this is something that could be shared on a global scale? For example, this kind of experience, having the students, trying to motivate them by doing work in the community so that they can become good citizens. How feasible is this in other teaching situations, for example?
I don't only think that it could be shared, I think it's necessary that we share that kind of a message. From state to state, from country to country, there are many differences in our approach to education, in the way we implement the curriculum. But on a very basic level, we teach people, we teach students, and in that respect, we are more similar than we are different. And I know for me as a teacher, I want to see students that will graduate and leave my class and improve the world that we live in. And I think that most teachers around the world want that same thing. And this idea of service learning and incorporating it into the content and making it a part of what we do in school was not mandated in my district. It was something that was just important to me that I started to do on my own. It's one of those things that does not need to be dictated by administrations. It begins with teachers making that investment and making students connect to the world. And then eventually, as I've seen at home, administrators and directors and supervisors find value in that type of work. But I think that if we are to influence or impact the future in the way that we believe is important as educators, there has to be some human component in there. We have to make room for students to learn how important it is to improve the world that we live in, to help out in their communities, to connect to other people. And that's not specific to America or Tunisia or any other country. That's something that we all have to do.
And I think this is part of maybe the margin of flexibility that you can have, because as all teachers know, when you start the year, you have content, you have curriculum, you have something to deliver, and because you have results, at the end of the year, you have to achieve certain objectives as well, but not the same kind of flexibility, for example, can exist with some in some countries and with some administrators who maybe would not value that kind of work.
Yes, I understand that, and even in America, there's very little time left in the school day for a lot of what I'm talking about. Much of what I speak about, I did on my own time, on weekends, after school. I started a club with my students called Helping Out People Everywhere, or Hope Club, and we did a lot of that work on our own. But it doesn't even have to be something as big as the things that I'm talking about. It can be as simple as, a teacher with a smile in the morning, or telling students have a wonderful day, or encouraging them through their responses. It really is our response to people. And that's something that you don't need. We can make time for that.
Sure.
I think we have to make time for that.
Right. What do you think are some of the challenges that teachers are faced with today, both teachers and students, in fact? What are some of those challenges, do you think?
Well, there are so many challenges. In this capacity, I have had an opportunity to speak with legislators and policymakers about how some of the decisions they make impact teachers in the classroom. There are lack of resources. We face students who are unmotivated.
Right.
We are constantly having to defend the work that we do, because increasingly we find that the role of a teacher is losing value, in society around the world. And I guess I just refuse to accept that. I understand how important teachers are. I understand the impact that education has on a productive society. And I think that you just teach through it. Mm-hmm. So there are so many challenges. And it seems like as soon as we start to work on one, another one emerges. In my classroom, I have a very diverse student population. So to try to make everyone feel included when we're discussing very sensitive topics in history is a challenge. But we have to prepare students for the world that they're going to face. So I think the way we do that is to teach them skills that transfer, those critical thinking, those analytical skills, those, the ability to advocate for themselves and for others. Those are things that can be woven into anything that any teacher teaches in any setting. And students have to be prepared to meet those types of challenges. So, and I think the way that we do that is through education. It is so important to who we are, to who we want to be. And I think any teacher is not threatened by those challenges.
Right.
We almost expect that they will be there. It's, I think, our reaction to challenges that defines us. We cannot feel defeated or deflated when things don't go well. We just have to teach our students that, there's something I always say to my students. I tell them, sometimes you do the very best you can and it's good enough, and sometimes it's not. Mm-hmm. But it's our reaction in those times that really defines who we are. And I think that we have to model that type of behavior and lead by example. And sometimes it's hard, but I think that we don't choose this profession because it's easy.
That's right. And I think you have said it. I mean, one of maybe the major challenges is motivation.
Yes.
So you start your class, like early in the morning or in the afternoon or at any time, and you have students there who are demotivated,
Yes.
who are just sitting there doing nothing, are not interested in what you are doing. So, I mean, that's one of the biggest challenges. I mean, how to get those students motivated. What is your recipe here, Jahana?
I think I just always stay uplifting and encouraging. I think for me, I try to make it very personal. I've shared with many of the students and people that I've spoken to here that I teach in a community that lacks resources, that is considered very poor by American standards. But I also grew up in that same community. So I use my own life as an example for my students that if you work hard, if you study, if you believe in yourself, that opportunities will open up for you. And I share with them some of my own challenges. And I think that through me, students begin to imagine that it could be possible. So, and I just always believe, even when I'm having a bad day or I'm not myself feeling motivated, I'm always there for my students, because I see something in them that they don't even realize is there yet. So students always say, you're always smiling. Why are you always so happy? And I say, inside sometimes I'm thinking I'm not happy, but it's a privilege to stand in front of you and teach you. So I think I'm in a unique position because I've seen what education can do through my own life experiences. So even when I'm in the classroom, I look ahead at what I know is possible. And I think that's what keeps me motivated. And my example motivates my students.
Mm-hmm. And since you are here, you have met many teachers, many Tunisian teachers. So what kind of exchange did you have with them? What are some of the issues maybe and some of the questions they came up with and that they wanted your maybe idea on those and your opinion?
Yes, I've traveled, I've visited teachers in different settings, and there are some major differences in education in Tunisia and education in America. And we talked a little bit about, they were very interested in, the structure of how we implement education in the States. But I think I was very excited that my message of nurturing empathy and creating students who care about their communities was something that resonated even with teachers here, because they see students every day firsthand, and they know that this is a necessary component. I think that I wish that I had had an opportunity to I visited with students at the university level. I wish I had the opportunity to visit students in a classroom who were learners and engaged in this with their teachers.
Hands-on learning.
Hands-on, yes, because that's really where you see the heart of a system of education. It's in the students. I was very excited by so many young people who were enthusiastic about joining this profession, because sometimes that's a challenge to attract people into the teaching profession. And then I guess I'm encouraged, because sometimes you're in the classroom and you have this idea of the work that you're doing and what you think it should look like, and you think that you're the only one who feels that way. So to be all the way around the world and realize that there are teachers who are equally as passionate, equally as dedicated, equally as committed, who are doing the very same thing that I'm doing, but in a different language, in a different country, encourages me that, eventually we will be the change we wish to see. We will get the results that we are trying to get out of classrooms, because you have people who work so hard every day. So that for me was very encouraging, because sometimes you almost feel like I can't do this alone.
Right.
But I came to Tunisia and I realized I'm not doing this alone.
So you believe that even with, for example, the progress of new technologies, I mean, there will always be need for teachers, who will be there in classrooms.
Oh, exactly. I think especially with the progress
it's a
of
profession
new
that will not die
technology, you need teachers, We've seen education evolve over so many centuries, it changes, the way it looks changes. But I think even with technology, you need teachers as the facilitators to help students to understand how to use technology appropriately, how to, develop their gifts and their talents, how to encourage this creative spirit that students have. So technology will not replace, the human connection of a teacher. I'm confident of that.
Certainly. Okay, well, another short break with music and then
Okay.
we'll be back. Stay with us. Welcome back. 39 minutes after 2, and we continue with Jahana Hayes, who was nominated Teacher of the Year by President Obama, 2016 National Teacher of the Year. She is with us today, and we are talking about her career. We are talking about her interests. So your interests, Jahana, apart from teaching, of course, you have so many other interests. Outside the classroom. How do you use these interests to enhance your teaching and to motivate your students?
Well, most of the work I do outside of the classroom is in the community. I host several parent groups. I do an after-school program at the community center. I do lots of volunteer work in the community, cleaning the community, speaking to people. And I think that is really what has changed my teaching career, because when I go back into the classroom, my work is so much easier because students feel connected to me as a human, as a person. Their parents trust me with their child. I share that most of the time students don't see the teacher as a human being.
A human being, that's right.
I
Yes.
see them in the supermarket and they say, "What are you doing here?" And I say, "I'm getting groceries." Or they see you out in the community and they're very surprised. But when students realize that you care about them as people, that you care about their community, you care about their families, that their stories are important, it makes them more willing to take risks with you, to try harder for you. I have students in my class who have been difficult with other teachers, but because it's me, because I have shown them a level of respect that they are not used to, they tell me all the time, "I'm going to do this for you." So it starts with them doing it for me, but by the time we're done, they're doing it for themselves because they begin to believe in themselves. So my work outside of school is just as important as the work inside of school, and it makes my job so much easier. It makes my classroom just a much better place to learn. When I partner with parents, when I partner with community members, then everyone takes responsibility for the education of that child. And it's not just me anymore. So that really has become a part of who I am as a teacher, my work in the community, and it really has consumed so much of my time. But I'm happy to do it because I really believe in the work that I do. I believe in the work that teachers do. And I think that we have to just figure out a way to get our students to learn. And for me, that's my way, to engage every part of who they are in the learning process.
What about your relation with your other colleagues, for example, in your school? Do you share the same, the same interests, maybe? Do you involve them? Since I see that you are a kind of federator, So, do you do that with your colleagues?
Well, initially, it was very lonely. It was just me, and they thought you're so overly optimistic,
So you believe
a little
that
bit
not all
naive.
teachers are...
Yeah,
are
I know. It's not just that I believe. I know that all teachers don't feel the same way that I
Right.
do, but I believe in it, and I have had several colleagues who have said, I'll help you out with your club. They see the way students respond to me. In fact, it has become that much more important for me to mentor new teachers because I want their introduction into the profession to be one that is enriching. Sometimes you have teachers who might be stuck in a rut and they only want to talk about the bad things that happen in education, and that is so damaging for a young professional.
Right.
I want people to come into this profession feeling that the work they do is valued, that the role they play is important, that teaching is still noble. And I do that through my actions, through my interactions. And I have seen many of the teachers at my school, just because they see that we have had a complete culture shift, that students are engaged, that students are enthusiastic, that they want to be better. So over time, I have had many teachers in my school who will come to my class and say, you know, I would love to help you out or work with you or, you know, do something together because I see the way students respond to you. So it's something that we mentor each other, we work together, we collaborate. There's this level of collegiality that where we respect everything that everyone brings. And I've seen in my building that we have 128 teachers, that the climate has really shifted. You know, we realize that we have to work together, you know, in order to make our school a better place, make learning opportunities available for students. So I've seen over time, you know, in the beginning it was just me, but now there are several teachers, you know, who are doing the same type of work that I'm doing, you know, finding their passion and transferring it to students and working well past, you know, the contracted hours. And it really has made a difference in my school.
So what do you think, what do you want rather your students to remember from your class?
That I cared about them. And generally that is what students remember. They remember very little about what we taught them, but they always remember how we made them feel. You know, I want them to know that they had value and that I cared about them as people. And, you know, even though meeting the standard and passing the test was important to me, I didn't want them to feel alienated or demoralized or devalued in the process. And as long as they were doing their best all the time, I was proud of them, you know, because I have students who really just don't like school,
Right.
you know,
Yeah,
they just
that's
don't
right.
like it.
That's right.
But it doesn't mean that it has to be a place where they're uncomfortable or unhappy or feel like they don't belong. You know, you have to be there. It might as well be
It's the natural environment.
Right. You have to be there. You know, it's mandatory that students attend. So it might as well be a rewarding experience.
Right. In light of the results of the American presidential elections, do you think that these results will have some kind of impact on the way some education issues are dealt with in the U.S., for instance? What do you believe?
I'm so glad this is a radio interview. I teach about the Constitution, so this is what I teach my students all the time about the process and what it looks like and how it works. And that being said, I believe in the process. I believe that we have very strong institutions in America, and that one of the things that we can celebrate is that we have free and fair elections and people are involved in this democratic process. I want my students to understand that even if your person doesn't win, it doesn't mean the process is broken. It means that this is what democracy looks like. All that being said, I think that in America that there's very few things that everybody agrees on, but the commitment to education and students impacting the future and making schools better places is something that we all share. It's pretty universal. What that looks like may vary from place to place. You know, America is a large country. We are always emerging. Over 300 million people went to the polls yesterday.
Right.
You know, and shared their opinions about the direction they want this country to go in. But I really believe, you know, as a teacher, as a citizen, as a resident of that country, that there is a commitment that is shared by all to educating our young people. So I don't think that this election, I mean, every election has some impact, but we really try to be careful of, it's not so much about the person, it's about preserving our democracy and the documents that guide us and those institutions. And I think those institutions value education. So I'm not really, well, I wouldn't say I'm not concerned, you know, it requires, and that's what makes this process so amazing, this Teacher of the Year process, because I have an opportunity to use my voice, to share my input on what teachers need or what I feel that schools need. So the nice thing about it is that we all come together and on very different levels, discuss, collaborate, share ideas, share information. And from administration to administration, the people change, but the conversations still remain.
Right.
So I am optimistic that we will do the right thing.
About the future?
Yes.
Right. Did you expect, the result?
No, honestly. I said to my husband, the Cubs won the World Series. Stranger things have happened. But I just think that it really just showed that people have some genuine concerns. So I think it gives us an opportunity to examine who we are and some of the things that we believe in. But so many different people showed up to vote, and there are so many opinions represented. But I think at the core of who we are, we care about other people. We want to maintain relationships with other people. We want to ensure that we leave things better than when we came. And I believe that we will continue to follow that tradition, to nurture those relationships. We have to.
And especially to promote understanding, mutual understanding.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My students, I teach at high school, so my students were very interested in this election because they will vote in the next election. So for young people to be energized and enthusiastic and watching the process gives me such pride. But it also says to me that we have a tremendous responsibility to make sure that they understand the power of a vote and understand what this process looks like and understand what happens when you abstain from voting.
Right.
So as
And
a
again,
teacher, it gives me a whole
role.
new charge.
That's
Yes,
right.
yes,
Another
yes,
role
yes.
for the teacher.
Yes,
I mean, preparing them to be better citizens.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think
Right.
I'm up for that challenge,
Wow.
but it really, you can't just say, I believe in democracy, but only if my person wins.
Right.
So I want students to understand that there is a process, that we are all involved, and we all have to be actively involved, and we have systems of checks and balances and accountability, and we all play a role in that. So it'll be interesting.
Well, we'll wait and see. Okay, maybe one last question. So, as National Teacher of the Year, what would be your message to the teaching profession?
That teachers have a tremendous obligation to ensure that our students change the future, that they get good information and they know how to process and analyze and critically evaluate that information and then do something good with it. It's not just about teaching students. It's not just about making sure that they leave us with this body of knowledge, but they leave us also with an obligation to use that knowledge to help other people. I think that would be my message. That's what has been important to me. That's the world that I want to see for my son and for my students. So I think that in the classroom, we play a huge part in what the future looks like, and we really need to take that responsibility seriously and ensure that every decision we make, everything that we do ensures better outcomes for kids.
That we are braving a new world.
Oh, it's definitely a new world.
And a better world, especially.
Better, yes.
Well, Jahanna, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have
Thank
you.
you.
I really enjoyed talking to you, and I hope the listeners as well. And wish you all the best of success in your future life and in your career, in all your endeavors. And keep up the inspiration.
Well, I enjoyed being here. Thank you so much for having me, and to everyone listening, I hope my English was good.
Oh, dear. Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you.
Yes.
I thank you, Saida, as well, for having given us the opportunity to have Jahanna with us today. So our last track, and then Yes, sure, Saida. You would like to conclude?
Yeah, just
sure.
I want to reiterate what Johanna said and insist on the role of the teacher and its human side.
That's right.
And just a message to all Tunisian teachers. I'm sure we have outstanding teachers like Johanna. So I want to tell them, just don't wait to be recognized or rewarded. Just keep up the good work.
Right.
That's
Just do what you think you are
Do
you
the
are
right
doing.
thing
Do
just
the right
because
thing.
it's the right thing to do.
That's right.
Period.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. Coming up next, and of course we say a big hello to your husband who has been waiting very patiently over there on the other side of the window. I thank you for listening to the International Service of Radio Tunis. I thank Mohamed Sidi as well for his technical assistance. And coming up next, a news update in French and the German language program. And my colleague for the German language program, I guess, is Ines. And after that, the Italian language program and Mohammed Manzli. Thank you and stay with us. We'll be back.